Hello everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Okay, let's continue with chapter 24. Okay, so we were discussing the government intervention. So we were in the middle of the chapter 24, and we were doing the government intervention in the labor market. Okay, so so the wage rate in the labor market was determined by the what demand and supply, right? But sometimes the demand and supply comes up with a wage rate which is too low. So that's why what happens that government interferes, and government interferes, and they try to come up with a law which ensures a better wage rate compared to the equilibrium wage rate. Okay, so this is known as minimum wage. Okay, so minimum wage rate is basically the minimum amount of wage that the workers are entitled to receive, okay, for their work or their service. Okay, so no firm can pay below this minimum wage. Okay, so this is the minimum amount that need to be paid to the workers. Okay. So there are some of the reason over here why government comes up with this minimum wage, which is above the equilibrium price. There are to benefit disadvantaged workers. It is argued that people such as women, ethnic minorities, and low-income families benefit from minimum wages. Okay, and so usually they receive these groups receive lower wage. Okay, okay, and not everywhere. In some countries, even in Bangladesh or in some developing countries, you will find that some groups are getting low wages compared to others. Okay? Official um, poverty line. Many families move out of poverty, and therefore, near poor families will also benefit. Okay, so you get it that as the wages rate is improving, so the family who are poor or very close to the poverty line, okay, those people are getting support for this kind of raise in their wage rate. Okay, next there is to help business. Okay, many argue that a minimum wage should promote greater quality and fairness among workers. As a result, workers will be better motivated. They should reduce staff turnover, reduce absenteeism, and raise productivity. Okay, so this is something that will help the business as well, because as the workers are getting more paid now, so naturally they'll be more willing to work now. Okay, so this is a good thing for business as well, because from the motivated worker, the firms can expect a better productivity, so which will ultimately help the firms. Okay. Okay, so this is a very important question. If you see the graph here, okay, you see this is the equilibrium wage, right? Right. So this is the equilibrium wage, right? And this is the equilibrium quantity, right? So why? Because they are intersecting in this place. Okay. But sometimes the government may identify that it's too low. Okay, so what will happen? They will try to come up with a new law or legislation which will ensure that okay, so above the equilibrium wage. Okay, so it should not be below this equilibrium, or uh, in the equilibrium it should be above, and this is the last limit. Okay, yeah, farms can pay above this wage but not below this wage. Okay. So but in general what happens that see, as the wage rate is increasing. Okay, so it may seem like it's a very good thing, but yeah, there are some negative effects as well. See that the workers over here, the workers will be receiving more wage rate, right? So what's happening there? The workers in the market will be willing to work more. And also people who are not working, they will also be interested to work as the wage rate is increasing. So what's happening? So, it will create a disequilibrium in the market. See that from this equilibrium, it's the the labor supply will increase to this point. Okay, see, this is the supply curve. As the wage rate is increasing, it will improve to this much. Okay, so they say this will become the quantity supply of the labor. Okay, so see, this will become the quantity supplied of worker. And at the same time, think about the demand. Who will demand the labors? The farms. So the farms will be getting the farms will find that the workers are becoming more expensive to them. So demand for labor will become more expensive. So what will happen that this, as the labor cost is improving, so the production cost will also improve. So it's not a good thing for the farm. So what will happen? The demand will fall. So see, this is the demand curve, and it will fall to this point. Okay. So see, we have a lower demand curve. Okay, so we can see that we are having higher supply and lower demand in the market. Okay, so you can remember what will happen. We did this in the previous chapters, in the demand and supply chapters. Yes, this higher supply compared to the higher lower demand will cause excess supply in the market, right? So excess supply will be in the market. That means the farms will be demanding less labor, but it will also it will have an excess supply in the market. Okay. So what's the after effect? This excess supply of labor will lead to surplus, right? That means there will be laborers who won't be getting any job because the market does not need so many labor. Okay, it's too much. Okay, so it will create a shortage. Sorry, a surplus or unemployment. Okay, because the market does not need so many laborers, it's too high. Okay, because of this disequilibrium or excess supply. Okay, so now let's go through some of the let's discuss how good or bad is it. Okay, it's an important question. Let me know if you're facing any problem. Okay. See what's happening, that minimum wage legislation. So sometimes government interfere the labor market to set the minimum wage because the existing wage is not sufficient for the workers. Okay, so in that case, government pass legislation or act to set minimum wage. This is known as minimum wage legislation. Okay? So it's a law which ensures this minimum wage. Okay? And minimum, we already did this, that a minimum wage, minimum amount per are the minimum wage is the minimum amount per hour which most workers are entitled to be paid. Okay. And now let's go through some pros that makes the good side. Okay. So increases income of low paid people or family, right? It's a good thing. Improves labor productivity, workers more motivated, so we discussed that as well. Then firms have more incentive to invest in labor productivity. Okay. So firms are if the firms find out that okay, the productivity is increasing, so why not let's invest more, so more labors will be taken by the firm. So can offset impact of monopsony employers. Okay. So it's like that. You don't have this topic monopsony, but still you can know. It's monopsony. The word monopsony is not in O level syllabus, but yeah, you can notice that monopsony is like it's like an opposite to monopoly. Okay, you can skip this point, but it's a very interesting one. That's why I kept it. See that it's like an opposite to monopoly. Like in monopoly, what happens that there is only one seller and many buyer. Here it like one customer and one many producers. Okay, so in this situation, what happens that there sometimes there are farms who are paying high wage, okay, and there are only one farm or very limited farm. Okay, so workers are forced to or yeah, to work in. They don't have much option, so they try to go for this particular job. Okay, so if government pushes the minimum wage upwards, what happens that the power of these firms falls. Okay, because other firms will have to pay higher wages now as well. Okay. Okay, next is increases incentive for people to enter labor market and accept job. Okay, so people will be more motivated to work now. We already discussed that point as well. That now workers are joining the workforce. Okay, more workers are working in the labor force. Okay. Okay. Now let's. So these are all the good sides, and now discuss the bad side. Okay. So can cause unemployment in competitive market. Okay, like we discussed in the graph that as it is creating an excess supply, so unemployment may occur. Then could encourage a use of black market. Okay, why black market? Because as it's more expensive over here, so black market can be is causing because of the disequilibrium. Okay, in the equilibrium, what happened that in equilibrium wage rate, the the labor market will demand exactly the same amount of labor that is being supplied. Okay, so there won't be any unemployment. Okay, but when the wage rate is increasing, there will be an excess supply. Right, very good point. Okay, so this excess supply will lead to unemployment because the firms can afford such expensive workers. Okay. Okay, next. Okay, so that's the end of this chapter and also the end of paper one. Okay, so we should start paper two now. Okay, so mm, okay, so in paper two, we can start a chapter, but we won't be able to finish this chapter. Wait, um, no, wait. Um, okay. Hmm. Okay, let's review this paper one because paper two, if we start today, we won't be able to finish. Okay, so let us review some chapters from paper one. Uh, like in the we did labor market. Okay, so in the labor market, it was like wage rate was what, remember, wage rate was the price of labor, and that means the how much money you are paying to the labor, the amount of money that has to be paid to worker for their work for a particular period of time. Okay? And how the wage rate is determined, the wage rate is determined by the forces of demand and supply, which is the market forces. And next we had what are the demand factors and what are the supply factors. So the main demand factor was wage rate. Okay, and when the wage rate changed, this was the picture movement along the demand curve. Okay, so like if the wage rate decreased. Okay, mhm, decreased from 1200 to 800, what happened? The demand for labor also increased because the farms will be able to afford more now. Okay, so and it's moving from the demand is moving from one point to another within the same demand curve. That's why this is known as movement along the demand curve. Okay, so there are other factors, other non-wage factors. So because of the change in this non-wage factor, the demand for labor will be changing, but in a different way. This is known as shift of the demand curve. Like yeah, like this one. Okay, the shift in the demand curve is like this, that if the demand curve shifts to the right, it means the demand is increasing, and if the demand curve is shifting to the left, it means demand is falling. Okay, so the first reason can be, first non-wage factor is derived demand. Okay, that means the demand for one good is rising because of the rising demand of another goods. Okay, for example, if demand for construction increases, then demand for construction workers will also increase. Okay. Okay, so it's like this, like in the COVID-19 situation when disease is spreading, what's happening? The demand for doctor will increase, right? The demand for vaccine will increase. So in the same like this, when construction increases, when demand for construction increases, the demand for construction worker will also increase. Okay? So it will shift to the right. Next is cost of recruitment. Cost of recruitment means that yeah, if like a if hiring worker is expensive, what will happen that workers will get the firms will try not to hire workers more because hiring new workers is becoming expensive. Okay. And next we so demand for new worker will decrease because recruiting worker is becoming expensive now. And demand for existing labor will increase because firms will try to retain those existing workers because they don't want to go through this expensive recruitment process and get new laborers. Okay. Okay. Next we have availability of substitute. Okay, so what are the substitute of labor? Suppose machine or robots, maybe. Okay, so if machine or robots are like cheap, it's getting cheaper or it's becoming more available in the markets, then what will happen? The demand for labor will fall. Okay, because the farms will be choosing machine or robots instead of labors. Okay, next we have productivity of labor. If productivity of labor increases, then demand for labor will also increase, because with this labor we can we are talking about the labor, so whose productivity is increasing, their demand will increase. Okay? The farms will be willing to pay more for those worker, because with the same short amount of time, and these workers can produce more output. Okay, so demand for those worker will increase. Usually what happens that if trainings are provided, at that time this happens. Okay, so there's a question like, what do you mean by paper one and paper two? Okay, so let me show you. Okay, like, see, this is your book. So in your book, like, there are two sections. Okay, see, 1.1 and 1.2, these two are paper one. Okay, so in your O-level exam, you'll have paper one. There will be one exam on paper one. It's an 80 marks exam. Okay, based on these two sections. That means from chapter 1 to chapter 24. Up to this, you'll have paper one. Okay, so there will be an 80 marks exam in O level, based on these 24 chapters. Okay, and another day you'll go to the exam hall and appear for paper two. That means 2.1 and 2.2. Okay, that means from chapter 25 to chapter 42, up to these chapters, you'll appear for paper 2. Okay, this is another 80 marks exam, 1.5 hour. You have to appear for this exam, and in this book, you'll have a sample paper on paper one and paper two. Okay, if you go through this, you'll get a better idea. Okay, how does this paper looks like? Okay, so when we are so in the first monthly exam, you won't have two yeah, exams, but within the same exam paper, there will be two sections. The one part is for paper one, another part is for from paper two. Okay, so I think you get the syllabus already. So if you see the syllabus, you'll see that from paper one there are a few chapters, and from paper two there are some chapters as well. Okay, so the question paper will consist of, like, in the first monthly exam there will be 40 marks exam, so 20 marks from paper one and 20 marks from paper two. So that's what we'll have. So if you have more question, you can ask me another day. We are out of time today. Okay. Okay, so please let me know if you have any confusion. See you in the next class, inshallah. Thank you, everybody.